The same people that would vote to cut defense $177 billion, the same ones that would put homos in the military, the same ones that would...
Okay, freeze. In a moment, Bernie Sanders is going to respond to this congressman in a way that will go mega viral, but he's going to do it in a weird way. He's not going to use any of the tactics that his own party, or most of the people reposting his response, would use. Instead, he's going to use a technique that, despite having studies to support it and being a favourite of the political masters, is often ignored. I want to show you this technique, the psychology behind it, and how it can be used to win.
We're not in a mode of persuasion anymore. We're in a mode of mobilization.
If they put up walls between them and they only talk to their own supporters, democracy won't work.
And I became very concerned that the pro-democracy, pro-freedom side wasn't winning, in part because it had lost faith in this notion that it could persuade.
Okay, I want to start here. Barack Obama talking about climate change, but doing it in an odd way. Look, this is how the left normally talks about climate.
People are suffering. People are dying.
Here the focus is on compassion, caring for those harmed by climate change. But now listen to Barack Obama.
There's something sacred about this place. And I suppose that's why the walls of this valley were referred to as cathedral walls. And the biggest challenge we're going to face in protecting this place and places like it is climate change.
This is strange. Obama talks about sanctity, protecting something sacred, and it's completely different to how the left normally talks about this issue. Here's another example. This time Ronald Reagan, a conservative president, making the case for immigration and asylum. Yes, I know, conservative and pro-immigration. Anyway, normally the argument for supporting refugees focuses on their suffering. Or you hear this kind of argument.
I have never understood why across the world there's a woman just like me, with the same abilities and the same desires, only she sits in a refugee camp and she has no voice.
An argument that focuses on equality, treating all people the same regardless of their passport. But here's Reagan doing something different.
This, I believe, is one of the most important sources of America's greatness. Thanks to each wave of new arrivals to this land of opportunity, we're a nation forever young, forever bursting with energy and new ideas, and always on the cutting edge, always leading the world to the next frontier.
Instead of appealing to compassion, he talks about freedom and making America strong. In all these examples, the politicians are taking an unusual approach. Why? Okay, to explain what's going on, I need this book and snacks. Lots and lots of snacks. The book is The Righteous Mind by this man, Jonathan Haidt. And one of his key ideas is that there are 6 different moral foundations on which we can make a political argument. So for example, if you're talking about the suffering of those affected by climate change, you're using the moral foundation of care harm, the idea that we should be compassionate and against those who harm others. Alternatively, if you're making an argument about equality, you'd be using the moral foundation of fairness cheating, the idea everyone should be treated equally. Other moral foundations are sanctity, which Barack Obama invoked when he talked about sacred spaces, loyalty, which is about the strength of the group or country, and liberty, the idea of being free from oppression. These last two being the values Reagan invoked in his speech. The final moral foundation is authority, which is about giving due respect to the people and institutions of society that deserve it. For example, when politicians thanked servicemen and women, or when during the pandemic in the UK, there was the clap for the NHS tributes. By the way, this last moral foundation of authority will become super important in a moment. What Haidt argued was that each of these 6 moral foundations was like a different moral flavour. And just as some people prefer sweet things and some prefer savoury, so different people are attracted to different kinds of moral arguments. Yes, I'm doing the clones thing. And what's more, he found that these differences in tastes lined up with differences in politics. Look at this graph. It shows how people with different politics find different moral arguments more or less persuasive. Over here we have responses from those on the left, who find the morals of care and fairness most convincing. But then, the more conservative someone is, values like authority, loyalty and sanctity become much more important. And here's how the best politicians show their mastery, by appealing not to the values of those that already agree with them, but by appealing to the values of those they most need to convince. For example, Barack Obama talking in the language of sanctity rather than care, or Reagan talking about immigration in terms of loyalty and liberty, rather than equality. In these examples, the politicians are taking issues normally associated with the left, and by framing them with a different moral flavour, are making them more appealing to conservatives. The name for this is moral reframing, and it's one of the most powerful ways to be persuasive in politics. In fact, this approach has even been studied scientifically. This study tested exactly the approach Barack Obama took, and found conservatives were more likely to support environmental issues when framed in terms of sanctity, keeping nature clean and pure. Reframing in the other political direction has been tested too. This study, for example, found those on the left were more likely to support military spending when the issue was framed as a way for the disadvantaged to get good jobs and overcome inequality. Okay, so now we understand moral reframing. Let's get back to Bernie.
Now, my ears may have been playing a trick on me, but I thought I heard the gentleman a moment ago say something, quote unquote, about homos in the military. Was I right in hearing that expression?
Absolutely. Putting homosexuals in the military.
You said something about homos in the military. Was the gentleman referring to the many thousands and thousands of gay people who have put their lives on the line in countless wars defending this country? Was that the group of people that the gentleman was referring to?
I'm talking about the military people in the military do not support.
That's not what we were talking about. You used the word homos in the military. You have insulted thousands of men and women who have put their lives on the line.
I'm talking about you.
It's a powerful response, but did you spot the moral reframing that made it even more effective? Notice he doesn't talk about the hurt caused by homophobia, the bullying, the hiding, and he doesn't make the equality argument, how everyone deserves the same rights and respect as others. Rather than the values his own side would find most appealing, he appeals to the values of conservatives, those that need most convincing. He points out that the soldiers are loyal, patriotic, and serving the group, making the congressman's insults a betrayal of that idea. And then with this line, Sanders is saying that the congressman is violating the moral idea of authority, not showing proper respect to those that deserve it. All these examples show how giving an issue a different moral flavour can make it more appetizing to others, even on issues that those people wouldn't normally support. The truth is, I don't think moral foundations theory is perfect, or that it captures everything about the differences in values and psychology between left and right. And there are other ways of modelling how the different sides see things. But what all these approaches have in common is they remind us that what we think is persuasive is not necessarily the same as what others, especially those with different politics, will think is persuasive. The campaigners and causes that are most able to remember this are those most likely to succeed. Hi, my name is Brendan and I make videos about the news and politics, explaining things at a deeper level. If you watch this, the next thing I recommend watching is this video, which is all about the hidden mechanism behind culture war media stories. The idea in it, when I first came across it, it really changed how I viewed things, and I know you will find it really valuable, so check it out.